Independent now, Josh. This headline was going so well until on his offer.
Yes. So Reform candidate says UK should have taken Hitler up on his offer of neutrality instead of fighting Nazis. And this is a candidate for the Reform Party, this guy called Ian Gribbin, who's standing in. It's not just that. There's a bunch of other stuff, a bunch of arguably quite misogynist stuff. But what's not just shocking for me apart from what he's said, is also the response of the Reform Party, which is to kind of try and pass it off as just kind of comments that had some truth to them. He was also dissing Churchill, and it's just like, look, we get it. There's a snap election. Lots of parties, and the Greens included, have put forward some people who weren't given the proper due checks. So just own up, put your hand up, and then. You
think he should be excluded for that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
everything he said there, Peter Hitchens has said.
Yeah. It's perfectly.
For instance, it's a mainstream view that in the 30s it was also, as he says himself, the mainstream view in the British establishment. Lord Hastings,
but he's not talking about in the 30s.
Was literally seconds away from being Churchill's.
But that was in the 30s before the rise of Hitler. Now, it did happen, and arguably it was one of the UK's greatest moments.
Arguably it was a catastrophe which led to vastly more millions of deaths.
I don't think stopping Nazis. I don't think it's a catastrophe.
To the sensationalist context, as you say, it's a normal historical view.
Yeah.
Just watch Darkest Hour. The establishment were all of that opinion. Yeah. Obviously, the Prime Minister was of that opinion until replaced by Churchill. Yeah. So it's not that controversial.
But it's back then.
And the idea is that Churchill destroyed the British Empire and gave it over to America unnecessarily. It's not that controversial.
No.
They're trying to make it sound like
He's not saying the Nazis were a good thing and we should have just let them run riot. It's quite a different proposition than that.
Well, and the other thing on women, it's a tongue-in-cheek, as he says, article. I mean, he says men pay 80% of tax, women spend 80% of tax revenue. On aggregate, as a group, you take from society. Less complaining, please, from the sponging gender. Is that serious? It's a kind of a Clarkson-esque piece.
He's clearly taking the mic.
He's also talking about Putin saying he's shown the maturity we can only dream of.
But that was before the invasion. This is the thing. They take things out of context and out of time. It's a similar thing. I'm not saying exactly the same, but I remember, and you can take a view as to whether or not it was unforgivable either way, but the most notorious of Donald Trump's recorded, overheard, in the Hollywood thing where you can just grab them. Yeah.
Billy Bush weekend.
That was from 10 years before he stood. Yeah. But my wife, right into the middle of his term in office, understood that to have been
recent. Yeah.
Well, within his election campaign. This is the thing I think you need to understand. This is not like he's not been on the campaign trail saying, if elected, I will.
No, but I don't think that makes any difference. Certainly with the Trump thing, like that it was 10 years or.
I think it makes a huge amount of difference. He was working for the
Apprentice. Just shows the kind of guy he was.
Yeah, but so does everything we know about Clinton. So the kind of guy.
But the kind of activists try and destroy people on this channel. These are the kind of people, so you have to take it with a large pinch of salt. And also, lefty parties say worse things than this. Often sometimes they shout them upon election. If we think about the Green Party, so it's
I just think I'm saying that I just think there's hypocrisy here where they're calling out. We can't call out the Green Party and various things that their people have said. No, call them out and not call this out as well.
No, they can call it out and then Reform can go, well, they'll think it was a mainstream view.
They have got rid of various candidates and they'll probably take it on a case-by-case basis and they're weighing this one up, seeing what happens.
I don't understand this mainstream view. It was a mainstream view in the 30s. It's not a mainstream view.
No. Some historians say it's not. That's the point, isn't it? Some historians say this.
Let me make it clear. It's not my view. I think it would have been wrong because the balance of power would have shifted. But it didn't prevent, the horrific. I mean, it was the bloodiest war in history by a long measure. All the millions of Jews that died in the camps, none of that would have been, none of that was prevented by Britain. So he's not saying, luckily Britain stepped in and consequently the Germans. You know what I mean? So it's a more nuanced historical position than I think is being presented either in the newspaper or you're suggesting. I don't think he's pro-Nazi.
No.
I think he's saying that Churchill is elevated to an unreasonable extent, as somebody who got it right when all the rest of the British establishment didn't.
Calling Churchill arguably the greatest Briton, abysmal, I don't know. It's not someone I want to vote for.
No, I'm not suggesting you vote for them. I'm just saying I think it's.
I don't know. I mean, if say the Green Party had put forward somebody who'd said something similar about Churchill, I think the right would be going, oh my God, look at this lefty calling Churchill abysmal and da da da. I'm just saying let's not be hypocrites about it. That's all.
No, well, I agree. Let's not be hypocrites.